Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're skipping the usual intro and diving straight into the mechanics of a multi-trillion-dollar industrial triumph. We're looking at an industry that has essentially hijacked our biology, totally altered global diets, and sparked one of the absolute most pressing public health crises of our time. Yep, we are talking about the processed food machine.
3,500. That's a huge number, right? Well, that is the massive volume of food advertisements an average child sees every single year. And let's be real, the vast majority of these aren't for apples or broccoli. They're for highly engineered, hyper-palatable junk foods systematically placed across TV, social media, and digital games.
So it really begs the central question framing our entire investigation today. How exactly did highly engineered snacks manage to hijack our brains, dictate our choices, and compromise our health on such a massive global scale? Well, to understand this, we need to decode the very anatomy of this epidemic, and that starts with the language we use.
Section 1. Defining junk, UPFs, and HFSS. Let's just start by peeling back the layers and clearly defining what it is we're actually eating.
Okay, so we toss these terms around interchangeably all the time, right? But they actually have very distinct nutritional and legal meanings. Junk food is the everyday term we all know. It focuses purely on nutrition, describing energy-dense foods packed with empty calories but lacking essential nutrients. But then you have HFSS. That stands for foods high in fat, salt, and/or sugar. This is a strict, formal regulatory category used by governments and health departments, like over in the UK, to determine exactly which foods face advertising restrictions or taxes.
Now, here's where it gets super interesting. Researchers in Brazil developed the NOVA food classification system, and it completely changes how we look at food. It doesn't classify what we eat by calories or nutrients, but purely by its degree of industrial processing. It ranges from level 1, which are your unprocessed foods like fresh fruits and veggies, all the way down to level 4. Ultra-processed foods, or UPFs. These are industrial formulations made mostly from substances derived from foods or even synthesized in labs, packed with artificial additives for texture, flavor, and immense shelf life.
Section 2. Inside the industrial food machine. Next, we really need to understand how our food evolved from local, seasonal staples to these global, level 4 industrial commodities.
Think about this remarkable 200-year journey. Back in the 1800s, industrial canning was essentially driven by the need to feed armies and, well, prevent starvation. But as we move through the decades, from the frozen foods of the 1920s to the explosive post-war mass production of 1950s TV dinners, right up to the 2010s, the whole goal shifted. The quest for basic preservation completely transformed into a relentless drive for absolute convenience, maximum shelf life, and now, digital delivery.
And the shift is brilliantly illustrated when you consider the journey of a simple potato. It doesn't just get cooked anymore, it gets engineered. It's washed, peeled, fried in high-heat vegetable oils, coated in artificial flavors and MSG to maximize those savory umami tastes, and finally packaged in nitrogen-flush bags to prevent oxidation. This isn't cooking, you guys. It's a sophisticated manufacturing process designed to create a hyper-palatable, totally shelf-stable product that you literally cannot stop eating.
So the crucial point here is that this extreme level of processing introduces potentially harmful substances into our bodies. Consider some of these specific risks. Trans fats, which were created just to improve shelf life, are so strongly linked to heart disease that they are now flat out banned in the US and EU. Titanium dioxide, a white pigment used to make candies look brighter, is actually banned in the EU right now due to concerns over potential DNA damage. And acrylamide, that forms naturally during high heat frying and is considered a probable carcinogen. The convenience we crave definitely comes with a hidden molecular cost.
Section 3. Hacking the brain. Junk neuromarketing. Because creating this irresistible food is honestly only half the battle for the industry. The other half, making absolutely sure we cannot resist buying it.
Food marketing isn't just about providing information anymore. It's about influence and neuroscience. Marketers are deliberately bypassing the prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making part of your brain. Instead, they're using bright colors, catchy sounds, and emotional cues to directly target the amygdala and the brain's reward systems. They are actively engineering dopamine release to create habitual, unbreakable cravings.
And the absolute most effective target for these neuromarketing tactics? Children. The industry literally weaponizes a child's lack of cognitive maturity. Because kids under 12 often can't grasp persuasive intents, they just take ads at face value. So marketers use emotional associations, pairing sugary snacks with pure joy. They build pester power, prompting kids to relentlessly nag their parents. By using cartoon mascots, they build emotional brand loyalty that lasts a lifetime, and they seamlessly integrate all of this into a kid's daily life through gamification and apps.
Section 4. The cost to our health. Now, we really have to look at the grim reality here. We've seen the engineering and the marketing, so what is this multi-trillion-dollar industrial triumph actually done to our bodies?
Well, high-income nations absolutely lead the world in consumption. The USA, Australia, and Canada are putting away staggering amounts of fast food per capita. And the global consequence is profound. According to the World Health Organization, worldwide obesity has more than doubled since 1990. Today, roughly 1 in 8 adults globally is obese, and that's driven heavily by the rapid global spread of these ultra-processed diets.
And the financial fallout? Just as shocking. $1.1 trillion. That is the staggering estimated global cost of diet-related diseases every single year. This encompasses the immense burden on our healthcare systems treating type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers, as well as the massive economic loss from reduced workforce productivity.
But we have to humanize this data. It's not just about dollars and cents. Globally, over 340 million children and adolescents are overweight or obese. And as researchers are pointing out, the impact goes way beyond weight. Emerging science suggests that diets high in ultra-processed foods during early life may actually rewire the developing brain. What happens in childhood doesn't just stay in childhood. It sets the foundation for a lifetime of metabolic and cognitive well-being.
Section 5. How countries are fighting back. Thankfully, the world is waking up to this crisis. Governments are no longer leaving it entirely up to personal choice. They're deploying some serious regulatory counterattacks.
We're seeing a massive global paradigm shift right now. Different nations are treating the overconsumption of junk food not just as a failure of individual willpower, but as a systemic public health emergency that requires serious, evidence-based policy intervention. We're talking aggressive taxation and mandatory labeling.
Let's highlight a few of the specific global pioneers succeeding in lowering exposure. Chile, for example, implemented highly visible, mandatory black stop warning labels right on the front of packages high in sugar, salt, or fat. The UK introduced a highly successful sugar tax on soft drinks and has pushed for a 9 p.m. watershed to ban junk food ads when kids are watching TV. Mexico hit sugar-sweetened beverages with a 10% tax, which immediately reduced purchases. And South Korea has instituted some of the strictest bans of the entire world on marketing junk food to children under 13.
Now, of course, these kinds of advertising bans generate fierce debate worldwide. To look at both sides impartially, public health advocates argue that bans are absolutely vital to protect cognitively vulnerable children, drastically reduce massive societal healthcare costs, and basically level the playing field against billion-dollar marketing budgets. Conversely, industry and free market proponents argue that blanket bans unfairly restrict commercial freedom of speech, infringe upon what should ultimately be parental responsibility, and economically harm media outlets that rely on those vital advertising revenues.
Which brings us to the future, and frankly, a pretty provocative thought to leave you with. Food technology isn't slowing down. With the rise of artificial intelligence capable of micro-targeting our cravings in real time, and food scientists engineering ever more palatable snacks, the food environment is only getting more complex. So as these forces evolve, who will ultimately win the battle for our biology? Will it be targeted algorithms and ultra-processed convenience, or will informed consumers and sweeping public health policies turn the tide? It's a question that's going to dictate the health of the next generation. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this gives you a brand new lens through which to view your next trip to the grocery store.